In today's landscape photography video, I'll be showing you how I edit one of my photographs using Lightroom Classic. I'll be showing you my workflow and how I edit a photograph to add contrast and clarity to really make that image stand out and pop. So if you want your photograph that looks like this to look more like this, then please stay watching. So first of all, I'm going to show you where I took this photograph. So we click on the map and we can see right here in the top of Scotland, and the photograph was taken at a place called Clashnessie Beach. So if we go back to development, I'll select the image. So first of all, when I bring a photograph into Lightroom, I'll first check the exposure on the histogram up here. And as you can see from this photograph, there's no clipping of the shadows and there's no clipping of the highlights, so this is a correctly exposed image. So first we come down to lens corrections and we click on remove chromatic aberration. Now I always click on this one because chromatic aberration is like a phenomenon that you get with distortion of the lens. So basically it's a failure for the lens to focus on all colours at the same convergence point. So this generally affects areas where there's high contrast. You'll get like either a green or purpley cast between those high contrasts. So I always just remove that one because I haven't seen any negative effects of doing so. Now when I'm editing a photograph, before I start, rather than changing all the settings, I'll have in my mind's eye what I wanted that photograph to look like. So what I love about it is this lovely pattern down the bottom in the sand, coming up here, and then you've got some more patterns in the sand, and they're very graphical and very strong, and you have this lovely white crofter's cottage here with this imposing dark clouds above. So what I want to do is try and add a bit more contrast to this image, probably boost it more than I normally would to add some more darkness to the clouds and some more clarity to this sand pattern. So to do that, I'll start with the dehaze. So the dehaze will remove any haze from the image by adding a lot more contrast to the image. So we don't want to overdo this, so I just want to increase it a little bit, probably around 31, something like that. That's about right, I think, for this image. So what that tends to do when you move the dehaze filter is add a blue cast to the image, and it also adds the contrast, so it darkens it as well. So as you can see now on the top left, you can see there's some clipping of the shadow details. So that has appeared from using the dehazer. So I'm not going to use the exposure to increase that or use the temperature to remove that blue, because that's not something I want to do just at this point. Now with this image, because I want it to be quite imposing, it's a cold, wet, miserable day, so I don't feel it's a very warm image, so I want it to be nice and cold to portray that kind of desolate feel to the image. So the first thing I'll do generally is to come to the white balance, but because I don't want to change that, I'll leave that for now. I very rarely touch the exposure and I very rarely touch the contrast, but in this image, as I said, because I want to add more contrast in the sand in the foreground, I will boost that up a little bit. So bring that up to around 26, 27, something like that. Now I'm going to set the black point. So if you use the Alt key or the Command key on a Mac and then move the black slider here, you can see over here, you can see where, or anything that's black is where there's complete lack of detail in the shadows. So what we're going to do is move it to the right hand side till we get a bit more detail in all those shadows. So that's about 12. So we want to do the same for the white, and as you can see on the top right hand side, we've got quite a bit of leeway for the whites. So again, I'll click on the white area and I'll slide it across, and as you can see, this, it's very light over here, and you can see the highlights have been blown out, there's no detail in them, so I want to bring that down to about 48, and you can see they've just disappeared now, so that's ideal. I'll then go and lighten the shadows because I want a little bit more detail in these hills in the background. So I'll bring that up a bit, probably about the same, 48, that's about right. And then the highlights, I'll bring that up slightly to add a bit more brightness to the image, about 19, 20, something like that. So that's about right. So now we've got no clipping to the shadows or the highlights here. So I'll add a little bit of clarity as well. So what this will do is add a bit of contrast between the pixels. So I'll just set that up a slight bit, just about 12. I generally leave the vibrance and the saturation, as I'll quite often come down here and use the saturation and edit each individual channel, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to add too much saturation to this image. So I'm just going to come down to the tone curves next, And I'm going to add a little bit of light, just to brighten it up a little bit, to about 13, that's about fine. And then I want to come down to the darks, about 7, something like that. And what I'm doing is adding the classic S shape to try and add a bit more contrast again into this image. So that's pretty much all of the global adjustments that I'm going to do to this image. So to darken the sky, I'm going to add a graduated filter. And what I'm going to do is darken that a bit, just so you can see the effect it's having. So I'm going to gradually drag that down. So anything at the top of this filter is going to be 100% affected, and anything underneath is going to be 0 affected. And in between those 2 points, it graduates from 0 to 100. And if you drag these sliders in, you can actually see you can make the gradient between 100% and 0% a lot finer. So I'm going to drag this up to the top. So about there. I just want to bring it down. I want quite a big graduation between the two because I don't want it to be too obvious. So for this one, I'll lighten up the exposure a little bit to about 1, something like that. I don't want it to be too unbelievable, but I do want to add a lot of drama to this image. And there is a bit of blue in these clouds here, and I don't like that. I prefer the blue in the sky rather than the clouds. So I'm going to desaturate that slightly. Probably, yeah, about around 30, something like that. So that looks about right for the sky now. That's a lot more drama in there. And I'm going to add another filter from the bottom, going all the way up. So probably about 2/3 of the way up. And what I'm going to do on this one is, again, I want to remove some exposure. I think around 130, something like that. That's about right, I think. And again, I want to desaturate this one. About 20, about 30. There we go. Because I don't want too much colour at the bottom. I want it dark at the bottom and dark at the sky, so then it leads the eye from this lovely dramatic pattern here all the way through up to this building. Because I think this crofter's cottage is the main interest in this photograph. So what I'm going to do now is just to emphasise that a little bit more, and also when I took this photograph I waited till these waves were breaking, and there's quite a strong wind, so you get this lovely spray coming off these waves here. So I want to emphasise that a little bit more as well. So I'm going to use the adjustment brush here, and by using the square right and left brackets, so the right bracket will increase the size of the brush and the left bracket will decrease it. So I want to lighten these bits here, so I'm going to add a little bit of exposure to that one, so around 1 I think, and then also I'm going to set the white point really high because I only want it to affect the white areas of these waves. So I'm just going to drag that across quickly, and what you can see is that's just affecting the white areas and just really emphasising this spray from these breaking waves here. And just add a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to go right to the crofter's cottage and add a little bit to this. I'm just doing it quite quickly for the video, but normally I'll do it a lot more carefully than this. Okay, just a bit more under there. So I think that's about right. So that's it done. That's my image. So I hope you like that tutorial and you found something useful in there, and you like the way I edited that image. So I've had a little collaboration with another YouTuber called Alex Ivy, and he's very good at imaging and videos and Photoshop and things like that. So he looks at a professional photographer and shows you how to edit the photos like they do. And he's so good at it, I asked him if he could do one of my photographs, and he got it spot on how I would normally edit my photographs. So I'm really pleased with that. So I'll just show you what he's done. So thank you very much for that, Alex. I really appreciate that. So please have a look at his channel. I really recommend it. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video today and it's been useful to you. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and I really would like to hear your comments, so please give it a comment and let me know what your thoughts are. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.